Hello everyone, back to you in today's second video. So we've already done a 5-day forecast, and you can find that video here on the homepage. Just scroll down the page a little bit and it's above the snow desk. There's also the written version, you can get to that from buttons at the top of the page. It's going to be quite a cold 5 days coming up, and in fact it does get colder as we go along. And by the time we get through to the early part of next week, we may have some very cold air into the southeast. There has been an upgrade overnight with the model runs. There's been an upgrade in terms of next week's cold potential. So we could now be facing our coldest spell of the winter. Not looking at anything of winter so far. Not looking at anything like a real easterly blast, but it does look as though we are going to bring in some really quite bitter continental air from off-continent, particularly into the south and the southeast for the early part of next week. I mean, how long that lasts is open to a lot of questions, but the main point is that the cold is currently upgrading for next week. So I'll tell you for everything that's going on in a moment. We'll begin by having a look at the situation for Saturday, because I've got a bit of a headache for Saturday, and I'll talk you through that in a moment. We're covering in the 5-day forecast, but I'm going to go in depth and show why we've got this headache. So that's where we're going to begin with today's video. We'll start by having a look at the precipitation type forecast from the Weather Outlook. So we're beginning here at midnight on Saturday. Mainly dry at that point and frosty, but you'll see there is a band of rain out across western Scotland and Ireland. And then let's run through in 3 hourly steps. This takes us to 6 o'clock in the morning. That band of rain is pushing in across the Irish Sea. It's coming into the cold air and it's turning to snow across Scotland and across the northern parts of England as well. We go through to 9 o'clock in the morning. You see snow is coming down through northern England into parts of the North Midlands. Heavy rain further south of that. And then through the day, this weather front kind of like just gets stuck really. It's being blocked by the anticyclone that's setting up over Scandinavia, and within this cold air, we've got a weather front that's kind of like just stationary, so it's producing heavy snow here across Scotland and northern England, heavy rain further south, and then we go through the afternoon. We just keep that band of wet weather going through these centres. May not arrive in the extreme east at all through the course of Saturday. In the west it does clear, but you'll see that there's quite a lot of snow being predicted here for parts of Scotland down to northern England. Also increasingly coming down into the Midlands by the end of Saturday afternoon. Now, I wouldn't take those areas too literally. This is a way off, and it's a very, very marginal situation. So it could be that where we're seeing the snow here, actually there'll be more in way of rain. Conversely, where we've got the rain, there might be more in the way of snow. It just depends how the air mixes out, really. We've got conflicting air masses, mild air from the Atlantic, cold air from the continent, and what will already be established over countries. Just how that interacts, that air interacts, and also the intensity of the precipitation, because that might produce adaptive cooling, which a model won't be able to see. So, for example, that area just out at 9 o'clock in the evening on Saturday evening, which is kind of like the south of the East Midlands, that's showing rain. But if we get some evaporative cooling, if the precipitation is quite intense, that might just be enough to lower the dew point to freezing and flip us into snow. So it's another one of those very marginal situations. We've had several of these so far this winter. It's another one that we've got coming up on Saturday. Somewhere could well get a big dumping of snow, but other places might just get a lot of cold rain. And then as we go through sort of Saturday night into Sunday, that rain and snow mix is gradually moving away to the south and also off to the east. But we will need to keep an eye on Saturday's weather, because it is a stationary front that we've got there. An area of low pressure is developing along it, which implies there should be some quite intense precipitation. And so we need to keep a close eye. Somewhere might get quite a lot of snow out of that situation. I'm sure we'll be updating Snow Watch before too much long. It won't be today because I've got to get the January ENSO update out, but certainly before much longer I think we'll have a Snow Watch sometime tomorrow. I want to just bring you up to date with this. The latest stratospheric temperature forecast from the GFS model is looking very, very dramatic in its extended range. So this is the temperature forecast from the GFS starting on the 8th of February, the stratospheric temperature forecast, I should say. I've got these blue colours here over the top of the pole. That's the cold temperatures. in the stratosphere. Look what's happening on this 6 o'clock run of the GFS. We pull apart those blue colours, we infiltrate. By the 11th of February, we're infiltrating greens and yellows, and then those colours just become more intense. That's a major sudden stratospheric warming developing, focused on two areas. Interestingly, it's focusing on the Canadian side of the Arctic and also on sort of the Scandinavian and Russian side of the Arctic. So two very significant warming areas producing a major southern stratospheric warming event over the Arctic through the second week of February. That is very, very significant. If that came off, I think we would quite quickly see a weakening of the polar vortex, because this is kind of like at the roots of the polar vortex in the stratosphere, and I think it wouldn't be too long after that but we would see quite a major weakening of that polar vortex. But that's the kind of thing you're looking for. If you want to see what a certain stratospheric warming looks like, that's it. That's how it looks on these charts at meteosil.fr anyway, and the GFS is being rather consistent with this, but do bear in mind we've been here before this winter where it's been going for this southern stratospheric warming, not quite to that level, but it has been going for southern stratospheric warmings at times for its extended range, and we've not really seen it come off. So it might be again that the model is going off on a tangent, but I thought I'd include it and throw it into today's video because that is a very major warming event indeed that the GFS model is predicting at 10 HPA in the stratosphere over North Pole during the second week of February. We'll keep an eye on it. Now, without that, it looks like we're going to get some pretty cold weather. So, as I was saying at the beginning of the video, we have upgraded the cold potential for next week. So these are the GFS temperature and precipitation ensembles for the next couple of weeks. So red line here is the 30-year upper air temperature average. It's pretty cold today. We're starting at -5. We're looking at Northampton today, by the way, local to me. So we're starting at -5 with the upper air temperatures. So already a little bit colder than average. We keep it at that sort of level through to the weekend. That little tick up in the temperature is associated with that precipitation spike just there. So that's Saturday's rain or snow situation. Beyond that, once that low pressure gets out of the way, it looks like we go off into really quite a cold spell indeed, certainly through the early and middle part of next week anyway. Getting very close with these ensembles to -10 at 850 HPA. That's proper cold air. If you get the -10 ice firm coming in, you can basically say in the middle of winter anyway, you can basically say that the temperature will be staying at or below freezing all day. So we may be in some ice days down in the southeast through the early part of next week. We see the temperatures lifting up a little bit through the second half of next week into the second week of February, but still generally staying a little bit below average. So even into the second week of February, we might see some pretty cold weather continuing and an increasing risk of precipitation as well. So the spikes are gradually increasing here, which is telling us that not only might it be cold, we might also have an increasing risk of rain, sleet or snow, interestingly, through the second half of next week, and then maybe going into the second week of February. Certainly the GFS ensembles are painting quite a wintry picture now for the first week to 10 days of February. Anyway, all of a sudden we have had quite a big upgrade in the last few hours. These are the surface temperatures for Northampton, so that's 10 degrees just there, that's freezing just there, that's +20 just there. We do well to get to that in February, although it has happened in February 1998. We got the temperature around the 13th and the 14th of February, got temperature very close to 20 degrees in some places, so it can happen, but very rare occurrence. And then down here we've got -10. So we're starting off today at around 6 or 7, 8 degrees, not too far from the average. We keep those sort of temperatures going into the weekend, gradually lowering though And then through to the start of next week, we do get a bit of a plunge coming along with the temperatures. So for a few days next week, from Monday to Wednesday, actually we're seeing the temperatures struggling to get much above freezing through the early part of next week. So quite a lot of cold weather, and some really cold nights showing up there as well, going down with the ensembles going down generally to around -5, but some of them could go lower than that. Now, as we go through into the second week of February, this period just here, we see the temperatures beginning to start to lift up a little bit. But still generally quite cold with the ensemble mean. And there's a big split there. So some of these ensemble members are going milder through the second week of February. Several are staying really very cold. So I think the second week of February is still open to a lot of doubt. But certainly next week, the cold potential has upgraded. So look at this. This is a temperature anomaly from the 31st of January to the 8th of February. And suddenly, it's looking colder than average, not just for the UK, but for many western parts of Europe. So much of Scandinavia, where you've had a really mild winter so far, mild for them, of course, it would still be cold generally for us in the UK. But next week anyway, or in the next week, we see the temperature anomalies there going down to around 6 to 8 degrees below average. The UK is around 2 to 4 degrees below average. France is around 4 to 6 degrees below average. Spain and Portugal around 4 to 6 degrees below average. Really anywhere from West Germany westwards, we're looking at substantially or significantly colder than average conditions in the next week. In the far south and southeast of Europe, it does look a lot milder there, but certainly becoming a lot colder. And this is a big change on what these charts were showing just yesterday. So clearly there has been a significant upgrade in the cold potential for next week. Precipitation anomalies look like that, and generally a little bit drier than average for the UK, close to average or a bit drier than average. So let's have a look at some models then, and this is for GFS, and we're starting on Saturday. Now remember, we do cover this in the 5-day forecast, but I just thought I'd just go over it again. What the complication is for Saturday is that we've got a weather front coming in from the Atlantic. All of this is cold air, and then we've got mild air, of course, coming in from off the Atlantic, and that weather front marks the boundary between the two different air masses. So that is 6 o'clock in the morning on Saturday, but this is 6 o'clock in the evening. You see what's happened. That front has stalled. The front is still through there, but there's an area of low pressure that's run along the front. That's happening because the front is stalling, so you've got the warm front and the cold front occluding out and forming an area of low pressure along it. And that's the kind of situation that can produce quite a snow event. It just depends whether the precipitation is heavy enough, so we get evaporative cooling, whether the air mixes out in such a way that the cold air undercuts. But certainly that is close to producing quite significant snow during the course of Saturday, and we do need to keep a very, very close eye on that. Now, by Sunday, that low pressure is slipping away to the south, and then we've got this ridge building out to the west. We've also got the ridge building over Scandinavia. The wind is turning into the east across England and Wales, starting to bring cold air in off the continent. That takes us to Monday. High pressure is in control for Monday, generally centred across the North Sea and up to Scandinavia. The wind is coming in from the east. And there's the upper air temperatures for Monday. You see that the -10 isotherm is arriving across eastern parts of England. That's bitterly cold air. I say, when you get the -10 isotherm in the middle of winter, you're going to struggle to get daytime temperatures above freezing. And because the flow is quite slack, I don't think there'll be much snow, but there may be snow flurries or snow showers generated by those cold upper air temperatures around coast. That's how things are looking on Tuesday. There's a weather front beginning to move in from the northwest on Tuesday, but generally most places would still be dry and very cold on Tuesday. That's how things are looking on Wednesday. Trying to back the wind into the west. I think there's another front that's pushing southwards and eastwards. It's probably somewhere there, Tuesday to Wednesday. That could be bringing the risk of more snow with it, because it is within cold air. So look at that. That's the upper air temperatures, generally close to -10 at 850 HPA across most parts of the country. So again, up to Wednesday, from Monday to Wednesday, we are looking at probably our coldest spell of the winter so far, and I think there would be ice days, daytime temperature staying below freezing all day if that came off. Now, later on next week, the GFS wants to start to bring the Atlantic back in. So Thursday, we've got a front that's out to the west, just here at 6 o'clock in the morning. That's coming into the cold air. That could produce some snow, so there are possibilities for snow events to happen through the course of next week. That low pressure clears away, or the weather front clears away by 6 o'clock in the morning on Friday. The winds are going into the west, so more Atlantic based, but still quite cold air actually coming in from the Atlantic. Then that's how we're going up to day 10, which is Saturday 10th of February, and we're looking rather unsettled and stormy then. The Atlantic has broken through, so we've lost that freezing cold continental type air, but it's still a pretty chilly west-northwesterly flow that we've got going on there. But I think we have to have a lot of doubt about that anyway, because let's go back and see how things are looking sort of midweek next week, and that's a really messy situation. We've got the ridge here over Scandinavia, we've got the ridge out to the southwest, and then we've got all this cold air up here. So that's a battle sort of situation. Not certainly isn't out of the question that this high pressure over Scandinavia might keep us into cold easterly continental air throughout the whole of next week, and the Atlantic doesn't break through. That is not an impossible outcome. ECWF looks like that, so again got these problems for Saturday. There's the weather front out to the northwest on Saturday, trying to dislodge the cold air that is in place. You see what happened by midnight on Sunday. Clearly a stall of that front has taken place. The front is into that sort of area, and that's a low pressure that's developed along that front. So real problems over the weekend. Into next week, this is Monday, the ridge is building from the Atlantic up to Scandinavia, so for England and Wales, that's turning the wind into the east. Then on Tuesday, we've got another weather front coming into the northwest. It's in that position. Meanwhile, the high pressure over Scandinavia is feeding in this bitterly cold air from off the continent. There's the upper air temperatures for midnight on Tuesday. We've got the -10 ice firm covering many parts of England. It's a little bit less cold out to the northwest, and as that less cold air tries to push in during Wednesday, coming into that bitterly cold air, so there might be the chance of some snow, maybe significant snow through the middle of next week. There's the upper air temperatures at midnight on Wednesday. Again, the -10 ice firm is covering many parts of England and Wales. We're actually going underneath -10 with the upper air temperatures for the southeast. I think going to around -12, maybe -13 there down across the southeast. Remember, those are upper air temperatures. But down on the surface, that means your daytime temperatures will be staying below freezing all day if that comes off, and nights will be really cold as well. Notice how cold it is across much of the continent as well. That's going to take some dislodging to push that out of the way, that cold pool. Into the second half of next week, the ECM does not bring the Atlantic through as quickly as the GFS does, so this is how things are looking on Friday, where generally we're still struggling to break the Atlantic free. The Atlantic air is sort of going up there, but I think even on Friday, the south and southeast is mostly still under a continental influence with the air. So I think the ECMD probably keeps things really very cold throughout the whole of next week. That's how things look by day 10. The Atlantic is having a go at dislodging that cold pool, but again, look at the stall that's taking place along the weather front there. You can tell when they're stalling most fronts because you get an elongation in the isobars, a dip in the isobars, such as we see there. So the front is trying to come in off the Atlantic, it's stalling within the cold air, and almost certainly producing heavy snow for some parts of the country. That's how the upper air temperatures look at day 10. Still a large and extensive cold pool of upper air across many central and northern parts of Europe. As I say, that's going to take quite some getting rid of. Going to take quite a lot of oomph from the Atlantic to really push that out of the way. So we'll have to see how we get on with that. And finally, these are the ECMWF ensembles for De Built in Holland. You can see the big change that's coming up for Holland. It's only over the other side of the North Sea, so it is relevant to particularly the southeast of England. Starting off mild at around 10 degrees, but look at the drop. Temperature that's taking place, going quite chilly up to the weekend. And then into second half of the weekend and next week, a plunge takes place, going really cold. Then that's freezing just there, so we are talking about ice days for Holland, and I think probably for southeastern parts of England through the early part of next week into the middle part of next week, and then slowly we start to bring some less cold air in the extended range, but that's a very long way off in this kind of weather pattern, and we'd need to see a bit closer to the time frame just how quickly the Atlantic can dislodge that cold air. So after days of messing around, it looks like we've firmed up on the chance of what could be really quite a substantial spell of cold weather through the course of next week. It's happened very suddenly. The only caveat is that because it's happened so suddenly, it might be suddenly taken away. But at the moment, it looks like we have had a big upgrade today for the chance of some really quite cold weather indeed. Our coldest spell of the winter may be on the way, particularly for southern and southeastern parts of the country. Not so much for Scotland and Northern Ireland in this kind of pattern, but for southern, southeastern parts of England, eastern England, the Midlands, you may well be in for your coldest spell of the winter so far, and I wouldn't be at all surprised if these charts are right, but we might have some ice days through the early part of next week in the east and the southeast, and there will be possibilities of snow coming along with this as well. Detail of that to be firmed up on. That could start as early as Saturday with the rain and snow that we've got on Saturday. So obviously we'll be keeping you updated with all of this, so keep checking back for more. Later on today, we'll have the January update for ENSO, see what's happening in the Equatorial Pacific Ocean in terms of La Nina, El Nino, and all of that kind of thing. So come back for that this evening, but that's all for now, and thanks for watching.